The rain was already falling when she stepped out of the car, heavy and cold, like the sky itself had been holding something back all day, and finally gave up. The sound of the door closing echoed too loud in the empty graveyard. She didn't flinch. She never did. Pain had learned to stay quiet around her. She stood there for a moment, the billionaire everyone feared, everyone obeyed. Alone between rows of marble and stone. No cameras, no assistants, no meetings waiting. Just her, heels sinking slightly into wet gravel, and a bouquet of white lilies held tight in her hand. Flowers she never sent. Flowers no one knew she brought. This place stripped her of titles, of power, of noise. The grave was exactly where it always was. Third row, left side, clean, untouched. Her sister's name carved deep into stone, letters, sharp and final, a name that once filled rooms with laughter, a name the world stopped saying too quickly. She lowered herself slowly, knees stiff, breath steady. This was the moment she allowed herself. 5 minutes. That was the rule. 5 minutes. To feel what she buried everywhere else. And then she heard it. A sound that didn't belong. A sob. Not soft. Not polite. Not the kind people hide. This was raw. Broken. The kind of cry that comes from a place words can't reach. Her body went still. Every muscle locked. The rain seemed to grow louder, but her ears were fixed on that sound. She turned her head slightly, heart starting to beat faster than she wanted to admit. There, just a few feet away, a man in a faded janitor's uniform was kneeling beside the grave. His back was bent forward like the weight of the world had finally crushed him. His shoulders shook as he cried, each breath uneven, painful. And pressed against his chest was a little girl, no older than 5, her small hands gripping his collar. As if letting go meant disappearing forever, the billionaire's stomach tightened. This wasn't right. Not him, not here. Her eyes scanned him quickly, the way she had learned to assess people in seconds. Worn shoes, mud on the hem of his pants, hands rough, nails darkened from work. He smelled like rain and cleaning soap, not wealth, not power. He didn't belong in her world, and he definitely didn't belong at her sister's grave. Her grief twisted into something sharper, something ugly. This place was sacred, private. It was all she had left of her sister. And now a stranger was kneeling there, crying like he had. She stood up slowly. The movement felt heavy, deliberate, like drawing a weapon without lifting it. The rain slid down her coat, but she didn't notice. Her jaw tightened. Her chest burned. "Who are you?" she said. Her voice cut through the air, clean and sharp, slicing right through the sound of rain and sobbing. The man flinched. He looked up slowly, like his neck weighed too much to lift all at once. His face was streaked with tears, eyes red and hollow, like sleep had abandoned him a long time ago. For a second, he just stared at her, confused, caught between grief and fear. The little girl turned to her eyes were wide, dark, wet. She pressed closer to the man, hiding part of her face in his chest. "I'm sorry," the man whispered. His voice cracked on the first word. "I didn't mean to." He stopped. Not because he was done speaking, but because he didn't know what to say next. Some people never learn how to explain their pain to those who don't recognize it. The billionaire felt her heart pounding harder now. Too fast. Too loud. She hated that. Hated how this moment was slipping away from her control. "This is a private grave," she said. Colder now. "You shouldn't be here." The words sounded right. Clean. Logical. They were the kind of words people expected from her. The man nodded quickly, still kneeling. "We'll go," he said. "I just needed a minute." A minute. Her fingers tightened around the flowers. A minute was all she ever gave herself to. And suddenly, that felt like theft. She looked down at him again. Something in the way he held the child made her pause. Not weak, not careless, protective, desperate. Like the world had already taken too much from him, and he was guarding what little remained. "This grave belongs to my family," she said. "You don't get to cry here." The sentence landed hard. Even the rain seemed to hesitate. The little girl let out a small sound, almost a whimper. She buried her face deeper into the man's chest. "Daddy," she whispered. The word hit the billionaire like a slap. The man's hand trembled as he gently rubbed the girl's back, trying to calm her. His own breathing was still uneven, but he forced it slower for her sake. "She's tired," he said softly, eyes never leaving the child. "She didn't sleep last night." The billionaire's lips pressed into a thin line. She felt something uncomfortable stirring beneath her anger, something she didn't want to name. "She shouldn't be here," she replied. "This isn't a place for children." The man looked at the grave, then back at the little girl. His voice dropped lower. "Her mother loved this place." The billionaire laughed once. A short, bitter sound that surprised even her. "Everyone loves things they don't own," she said. "That doesn't mean they belong here." The man didn't argue. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't stand up. He simply stayed there, kneeling in the mud, holding his daughter, absorbing the words like he had absorbed so many others before. People like him learned early that dignity often meant silence. The billionaire took a step closer, then another. She was close enough now to see the lines on his face. Too deep for his age. Lines carved by work and loss, not comfort. And that's when she noticed it. Near the base of the grave, half soaked by rain, lay a piece of paper, a child's drawing. Colors bleeding together, but still clear enough to see. Two women holding hands. One taller, one smiling wide. Above them, written in uneven letters, were two words, "Mom, Auntie, the billionaire's breath caught her world." Narrowed to that paper. The rain, the sound of her own heart beating too loud in her ears. She bent down slowly, ignoring the mud soaking into her knees, and picked it up with shaking fingers. Something was wrong, and she knew it. The first security guard appeared before the rain could settle, then another, black suits cutting through gray air, like shadows with purpose. Cold faces, earpieces, hands folded in front, calm and ready. They didn't ask questions. They never did. They looked at her first, not the man kneeling in the mud, not the shaking child, but the woman who owned the silence around her. She didn't raise her voice. She didn't point. She didn't even look back at them. One small motion of her fingers was enough. The message was clear. The janitor saw them and understood instantly. His body stiffened. Slowly, carefully, he rose to his feet, keeping the little girl tucked behind him like a shield made of bone and love. He stood between her and the suits. Shoulders squared, even though his hands were still trembling. "Please," he said quietly. His voice didn't beg. It cracked. "We'll leave." The billionaire barely heard him. Her eyes were fixed on his uniform. The faded blue fabric. The name patch, stitched crooked on his chest. The dirt ground into his palms. The way he stood like he knew he had no power here and still refused to collapse. She felt something sharp rise in her chest. Not pity. Not yet. Something closer to offense. "This grave belongs to my family," she said, slow and clear, like she was explaining a rule to a child. "You don't cry here." The words landed heavy. The little girl made a small sound behind him, a whimper that barely escaped her lips before she swallowed it back. "Dead," she whispered. That single word sliced through the air. The janitor's hand tightened around her shoulder. He didn't look back at her, but his body leaned slightly, instinctive, protective. His jaw clenched. He took a breath that didn't quite steady him. "She's tired," he said softly. She didn't sleep. One of the guards shifted his weight. Another glanced around, scanning the graveyard. A few people stood at a distance now. Mourners, visitors, curious eyes pulled by tension. The way moths are pulled to light. "She shouldn't be here," the billionaire replied. "This isn't a playground." The man swallowed. His throat moved like it hurt to speak. "Her mother." He paused. The word didn't want to come out. Her mother loved this place. For a second, there was nothing but rain. Then the billionaire laughed. Just once. Dry, bitter, hollow. The kind of laugh that carried no joy, only armor. "Everyone loves something they don't own," she said. "That doesn't give them the right to trespass." The janitor opened his mouth, closed it, then tried again. "I'm not trying to," the words collapsed under the weight of his grief. They fell apart before they could form. He rubbed his face with one hand, leaving a smear of dirt and tears across his cheek. Security stepped closer. Not touching, not yet, just close enough to make the message clear. People nearby stopped pretending not to watch. A woman held her phone low, camera angled just enough. A man whispered something to his wife. Judgment moved fast in silence. A rich woman protecting what was hers. A poor man standing where he didn't belong. The billionaire felt it then, that familiar sense of control sliding back into place. This was her world again. Order restored. Boundaries enforced. She straightened her shoulders, lifted her chin. "Take them away," she said calmly. The janitor's breath hitched. He didn't argue. He didn't shout. He simply tightened his grip on his daughter and shook his head once. "Please," he said again, quieter now. "Just give us a minute." The guard closest to him reached out. Not roughly, professionally, a hand hovering near the man's arm. That's when the little girl stepped forward, just half a step, enough to be seen. She held something in her hand, a piece of paper, soaked and wrinkled from the rain. The billionaire's eyes dropped before she could stop them. The paper lay near the grave, stuck to the wet ground. She hadn't noticed it before, or maybe she had and didn't want to. Colors, bled together, crayon lines, shaky but sure. Two women stood in the drawing, holding hands, one taller, one shorter, both smiling wide. Above them, written in uneven letters that wobbled with effort, were two words. "Mom, Auntie, the billionaire, felt the ground shift beneath her. Her breath stopped, just for a second. But it was enough. She took a step closer, ignoring the guards, ignoring the man, ignoring the rain soaking into her shoes. She bent down slowly, knees sinking into the mud she usually avoided at all costs. She picked up the drawing with careful fingers, like it might break if she held it wrong. "Auntie?" she whispered before she could stop herself. The janitor froze. His eyes flicked to the paper, then to her face. His mouth opened slightly, closed, opened again. "My wife drew that with her," he said. His voice was low now, tired. "Before she passed." The world seemed to tilt. The billionaire stared at the drawing, at the familiar curve of the smile, at the way the taller woman's hair was drawn, just like her sister used to wear it, pulled back, practical, kind. "She used to come here," the man continued, words spilling now that the door was open. "Every week," she said. It helped her remember what the billionaire wanted to ask, but she couldn't speak. "She talked about your sister a lot," he said. Said she was the only one who listened, the only one who saw her. The guards didn't move. No one did. Even the rain seemed softer. The billionaire felt something crack inside her chest. Not fully, just enough to let light in, or pain. She wasn't sure which, yet her sister, the one she called naive, the one she said cared too much about other people's problems, the one she kept at a distance because kindness made her uncomfortable. "She helped us," the man said, "when my daughter got sick, when no one else would." The little girl reached out and touched the stone of the grave with 2 fingers. "Gento, familiar." The billionaire swallowed hard. Her throat burned. She looked from the child to the man to the drawing. In her hand, this wasn't trespassing. This was something else entirely. And the silence that followed was heavier than any accusation. The billionaire bent down slowly, the way someone does when the ground beneath them no longer feels solid. Rain soaked through her coat, darkened the fabric, pressed cold against her skin, but she didn't notice. She reached for the drawing, with fingers that no longer felt steady, as if the paper weighed more than it should. The crayon lines were smeared now, colors bleeding together, but the words were still clear. "Still there, Auntie?" she whispered. The sound of her own voice startled her. It didn't sound powerful. It didn't sound certain. It sounded small. The janitor swallowed hard. His throat moved like it hurt, like every word scraped on the way out. He looked down at the ground for a moment, then back at her face, like he was deciding whether to trust what he saw there. "My wife worked here," he said quietly. "Years ago." The billionaire's eyes lifted slowly. "She cleaned the offices," he continued. "Late nights, early mornings. She used to say the building felt empty after everyone left. The rain kept falling. Soft, steady, patient. Your sister noticed her," he said. "She was the only one who ever did." The words landed slow, but they hit deep. "She asked her name," he went on. "Ask about us. Ask about our daughter. She didn't talk down to her. Didn't rush her." He paused, breath shaking. She listened. The billionaire felt the world tilt. Just slightly, not enough to fall, enough to feel wrong. "She helped us," the man said. "Not with speeches, not with promises, with action." The billionaire's grip tightened on the drawing. "She paid for our daughter's treatment," he said, "when no one else would." The words echoed in the open air, heavy as stone. "When hospitals turned us away," he continued. "When they said we waited too long, when they said we didn't have enough." The billionaire's chest tightened. She remembered those hospitals. She funded 2 of them. Her name was carved into their walls. The little girl stepped forward then. Just one step. Careful, brave. She held a wilted flower in her small hand, petals bent, stem weak from being squeezed too tight for too long. She looked up at the billionaire, with eyes that didn't know fear yet, only truth. "Mommy said Auntie was an angel," she said softly. The sentence was simple. The impact was not. Something inside the billionaire cracked open. Not clean, not quiet. It felt like something tearing that had been held too tight for too long. Her sister, the one she called foolish, the one she teased for staying late at work, for answering calls no one else answered, for caring about people who would never be able to repay her. To kind. She used to say, to soft, to distracted by other people's problems. She remembered those words now, and they burned. "She came here every week," the janitor said. "Sometimes, twice." The billionaire's eyes drifted back to the grave. To the stone she thought she knew. "She said this place helped her think," he went on. "She said it reminded her that life is short, and kindness shouldn't wait." Rain fell harder for a moment, tapping against marble and leaves. "After my wife passed," the man said, voice breaking, "we kept coming." The billionaire's breath caught. "It's the only place my daughter still feels her mother," he finished. Silence swallowed the graveyard. No one moved. Not the guards. Not the people watching from a distance. Even the birds seemed to disappear. From the air. The billionaire stood there, knees in the mud, flowers forgotten at her side, staring at a truth she had never bothered to look for. All her wealth, all her buildings, all her control. And yet, she hadn't known the most important thing about her own sister. She had funded charities, signed checks, given speeches about impact and legacy, but she had never asked who her sister really was when no one was watching. Tears blurred her vision. She blinked them back, then stopped trying, let him fall, let him mix with the rain. For the first time, she really looked at the man in front of her, not the uniform, not the dirt. The man, his tired eyes, the way his shoulders stayed tense. Even now, like he was still ready to protect his child from a world that never felt safe. He wasn't trespassing. He was remembering. He wasn't begging. He was honoring someone who had changed his life. The power shifted then. Not loudly, not suddenly, but completely. The billionaire straightened slowly. Not to tower over him, but to steady herself. She wiped her face with the back of her hand, unbothered by how it looked. "My sister," she said quietly. Her voice shook. "She never told me." The man nodded once. "She said some things, don't need witnesses," he replied. That answer hurt more than any accusation could have. The billionaire looked down at the little girl, at the flower in her hand, at the way she stood so close to her father, still brave, still open. She knelt again, this time in front of the child. "Eye level, equal. What's your name?" she asked softly. The Earl hesitated, then answered. The billionaire repeated it under her breath, like she was afraid of forgetting. She placed the drawing gently back at the grave, straightened it, protected it from the rain as best she could. "Didn't know?" she said again, not as an excuse, but as a confession. The man watched her carefully, waiting. The world had taught him not to trust quick changes. "I should have," she added. The guard stood frozen, unsure now. The rules had changed, and no one had announced it. The billionaire reached for the flowers she had dropped earlier. She placed them beside the drawing, then stepped back. "This place," she said, voice low, "doesn't belong to me." The words felt strange in her mouth. Honest, heavy. "It belongs to her," she continued, "and to the people she loved." The man exhaled slowly, like he had been holding his breath since the moment she arrived. The rain softened again. The billionaire stood there, between power and truth, between who she thought she was and who she was becoming. She had come to visit a grave. Instead, she had uncovered a life, and nothing about her would ever be the same again. The billionaire lifted her hand slowly, palm facing the guards, fingers trembling, just enough to show this was not a command she was used to giving. Her voice came out low, almost lost in the rain. "Leave us." The guards hesitated. They weren't trained for moments like this. Powell usually spoke louder, clearer, but this time, it sounded human. They stepped back, one by one, black suits melting into the gray distance until the graveyard belonged only to grief again. She knelt down beside the janitor, not in front of him, not towering over him, beside him, knee in the mud, coat soaked, pride abandoned. The rain kept falling, tapping softly on stone and leaves, but none of them moved. Not the man, not the child, not the woman who had everything and suddenly realized how little that meant here. "I'm sorry," she said. 2 words. Simple words. Words she had said before in boardrooms and press releases without feeling a thing. But here, they cost her something. They burned on the way out. The man didn't respond right away. He looked at her like he was searching for something in her face. A lie? A trick? But all he saw was a woman stripped bare by truth. He nodded once. Then he began to speak. He told her how her sister used to stay late after everyone left, how she would sit on the edge of a desk and ask about his wife's day, about their daughter's drawings, about the small things no one ever asked service workers about. She said people disappear when they're treated like furniture. He said quietly, "She didn't want my wife to disappear." The billionaire closed her eyes. Each word landed heady, like a confession she should have made years ago. She never wrote her name on the help, he continued. Just left envelopes, hospital bills, school fees. He smiled once. "Sad." She said, "Dignity matters more than charity." The sentence echoed in the billionaire's chest. Dignity matters more than charity. Her sister's voice seemed to rise, from the stone itself, gentle but firm, correcting her one last time. The billionaire placed her flowers on the grave slowly, carefully, not as an offering, as an apology. Then she turned to the little girl and held out her hand. The child hesitated, looked at her father. He nodded. Just a small movement. Enough. She took the billionaire's hand. Her fingers were warm, alive, trusting. "You can come here anytime," the billionaire said, her voice breaking. "This grave belongs to love, not ownership." The little girl smiled. Just a little, but it was enough to split the sky. The rain softened after that, as if it, too, had been waiting. Weeks passed, quietly, without cameras, without headlines. The janitor didn't return to the floors he once scrubbed. Instead, he sat at a desk, with his daughter's drawing framed beside him. The foundation bore the sister's name, but it carried her spirit even more. It paid medical bills. It funded school lunches. It listened. The little girl started school without fear of tomorrow. She learned to write her name in clean lines. She laughed more. She slept through the night. In the Billionaire, she came back to the grave often. Sometimes alone. Sometimes with the man and his daughter. Sometimes with flowers. Sometimes with nothing at all. She stayed longer than 5 minutes now. She talked. She listened. She learned how to sit in silence without trying to own it. She stopped measuring legacy in numbers. She started measuring it in names, because she finally understood. The lesson her sister left behind. Your legacy is not what you leave in banks or buildings. It's who cries when you're gone. And why? Power fades. Wealth disappears. Titles rust. But dignity, given to the powerless, echoes forever.